Here is how one of my amazing sessions went yesterday, and I wanted to share with you to showcase how we strategize in my sessions or in the sessions on coaching, right? So a client was talking about three topics, and I will try to explain three of them in a way that is relatable and applicable to you if that's your topic. And the topic one was um, outsider and insider topic. I will explain what that means in a minute. Another topic was what to do when a colleague wants to compete, but you are not the type of person who wants or likes competition. That's not who you are, right? And the third topic is it's complicated, or how do we label things complicated and why do we do that? And the impact of that. Hi, if you don't know me, my name is Salan Manawan. I'm a life coach for transitioning humanitarians. And I coach people to help to transition to the life they love living, whether it's impact they want to work on or making the financial side things work or live with their loved ones or all three altogether. So I was talking to this client about this topic of insider and outsider. And like some of my clients, you probably can relate to this feeling of feeling like an outsider in an organization where you've worked there for some time. Maybe it's months, maybe it's years, but still maybe because you have a different contractual status, right? Maybe you are on secondment, or maybe you haven't worked in the organization for a long time, so you're coming from outside, or maybe you were in the private sector and now you are going to the nonprofit. Whatever your situation is, you may feel like an outsider in that organization. Now, if you're not careful, like my clients, after having been there for some years, you may still find yourself feeling like an outsider. So we were exploring with her as to why that happens. And the part that is interesting is that I have seen now with several of my clients that when we think of ourselves being an outsider, we have a lot of the time a connotation to that outsider feeling being something negative, meaning that I am less than those people who are inside, right? Treating the people who work inside the organization or who have been working in the organization for some time as like club members, and you feeling like an outsider and never feeling like being part of it or belonging to that organization. Now, I was asking her, I understand that there might be also benefits to feeling like an outsider because you have a untainted view, objective view of what's happening. You are able to observe better how the situations are. Therefore, you may be able to offer solutions that are outside of the box. So there are advantages as to why feeling like an outsider can be. But I was noticing in her way of explaining things that she was using outsider feeling in the negative way as to how she will never be like, or she will never be able to achieve to the level that the others inside were, as if to say that I'm never going to be like them, and putting them into the pedestal and putting herself into an inferior position, right? Now, if that is the case in your case, then I would like for you to reflect on why feeling outsider immediately triggers you feeling less than those people inside, right? Because yes, there might be those people inside the organization or those who have worked in the organization for a long time. They may not be able to create great conditions for you to feel like part of the group and part of the team. And of course, there are a lot of comments we can make about them, but we cannot really influence them in the end of the day, right? So therefore, what can we influence is understanding why are we taking this feeling of outsider as something negative and feeling like less than? And how can we make ourselves feel equal to others, no matter whether we are insiders or outsiders? Because if we say we are an outsider and we're less than, what we are contradicting is to a core humanitarian principle that I believe we all believe in, which is human beings being equal in the dignity, in their rights. And when we put other people in the pedestal, and when we put other people as better than me in some way, what we're really saying is we don't believe in that principle, right? What we're really saying is that somehow human beings need to be placed in superior and inferior positions. But I don't think anyone really believe or wants to believe that, or I don't think that you would like to believe that either. So when you are putting yourself in the inferior position, whatever that feels like or looks like for you, what you're really saying is, I agree with how we humans can't be all equal, and some of us need to be less and others need to be superior. That's what we are indirectly saying. And if we don't want to say that, or if we don't want to believe that, then what we need to understand is us feeling less than or inferior is our own construction that we have somehow believed or internalized, probably from other people, probably from, I don't know, without really knowing how we did it, but that's how we ended up making constructions within ourselves, and that we need to get rid of. Right. So that's what I was telling her as well, is that as long as we put someone else in the pedestal, we automatically put ourselves in the inferior position. And if we're putting ourselves in the inferior position, then we are really saying we cannot be equal. And if we're saying we cannot be equal, then we need to start realizing, is that really true? And I'm assuming not. And if that's not true, then we need to get rid of that thought process or belief system that says I can be less than, or I can never be like them, or whatever the thing is. And instead looking at, okay, how can I feel powerful and equal all of the time, no matter whether I belong to that group or I don't belong to that group? No matter whether they create conditions for me to belong there or they don't, I decide how I feel, how I get to feel about myself and who I am, irrespective of what the environment shows to me. And the other thing is that when people get, let's say we feel like an outsider and we go to certain meetings and we're not feeling like part of it, and then everyone feels like they are surprised about why we are there, then we also tend to use that as an evidence as to how we are right about how we are less than, right? Instead of using that as an evidence to confirm what we already believe to be true about ourselves, which we do not want to believe to be true about ourselves, right? We do not want to feel inferior. We do not want to perceive or see ourselves as inferior. If that is the case, then what we want to do about that evidence that other people are surprised or they are feeling like they're judging us and they're saying, why are you here? We need to really give back their judgment to them and say, okay, if you are not able to create inclusive, diverse environment, or if you're not able to welcome others and create conditions to feel belonging for people who are new, then it's really about you, right? It's not about me. It's about you not being able to do that. Therefore, I don't even need to get into uh like deconstructing or understanding and all of this, because that's your problem. That's not my problem. Therefore, focusing on what we want to achieve and focusing on how we want to show up in that environment. Now, the third thing that I was discussing with my client in this outsider insider topic is I was telling her how whatever the room you are in, especially at higher level decision-making rooms that she was part of, right? Wherever the room you are in, think of it as you are representing a lot of other people who cannot be in that room, right? And that's why it is important that not only we get rid of our less than feeling and feeling equal and powerful, but we also need to do that so that we can represent other people in the most powerful way possible. Other people like our colleagues who couldn't be in that room, or other people like affected communities, people who are suffering from the consequences of war and conflict. We are representing them in that room. Therefore, we shouldn't make it about ourselves, rather about the impact that we're working on, right? And therefore, it's even more important how we show up and how we advocate for things, and not really struggle and keep thinking about how we're being less than and how we're not belonging and how we're being judged and all of this. Because if we keep focusing on that, then it becomes just about our insecurities, about our own belief systems that should be changed anyway, rather than about things. Okay, so that was about the outsider insider topic. Now, the second topic that we discussed, it was the competition, right? So she was telling me that a colleague of hers wants to compete with her in some way, somehow puts her in a situation where she feels like she needs to be competing. She feels like she needs to be explaining and clarifying roles and putting some boundaries. She just feels like she doesn't trust the colleague. And that's a topic we were discussing. And I was looking at it from the angle of, I was telling her how her belief system was, or her value system, rather, I should say, was she wants to collaborate, she wants to coordinate, she wants to feel inclusive and discuss things and challenge things together as a team. That's her value system, right? And the colleague's value system, according to what I hear, is being solo or competing and getting the best results for herself, that type of value system. And again, we're not here to judge which value system is better or worse, right? That's not the point. The point is us recognizing immediately that, oh, I see that this person is challenging my value system. And if I go into competition, which I do not want to, right? Let's say that's me, and I do not want to go to competition, and especially with other women, because of my principle that I want to be supportive of other women. I don't want to be competing with other women. Well, in my case, I don't want to compete with anyone anyway. But let's say that's the value system that I want to follow, then I see that someone is challenging my value system. So now the question is, do I give in to the pressures of competition and just go and compete, which is against my value system? Or I actually decide to stand by my value system and not compete, even though my survival instincts are like pushing me to do that in that context, right? And I think the more we start embracing how, oh, this is a time when I need to stand by my value system, and someone is challenging my value, and I don't want to give up my value of collaborating and coordinating and doing things together. Therefore, this is the time where I stood by what I believe to be true, right? Now, in order to do that, though, we need to understand that if we keep judging the other person and saying how they are competing, how they shouldn't be competing, how they're this, how they're that, then it's likely that we are losing the game, or we're losing the context because we're not really focusing on how to stand by our own value system. We're just focusing on how what they shouldn't be doing, right? And if we keep focusing on what they shouldn't be doing, guess what we're not doing? We're not following our own value system. We're not um, advocating for our own value system. We're not practicing and exemplifying our own value system, right? So therefore, we need to understand that whenever people challenge us as humans or challenge our value system, we need to recognize how this is very, like in quotes, normal, right? Because we all have different ways of valuing things, different way of working, and different ways of believing that how work should be set up. And therefore, instead of keep judging the other person or keep saying how we should protect ourselves, because when we say that I don't trust this person and I don't want to work with this person, what we are again indirectly meaning is that I need to somehow protect myself, or I need to somehow be vigilant because I don't trust this person. And therefore, our energy may go a lot into how we don't want to be doing things that they are allegedly forcing us to do, but no one can force us to do anything unless we allow them, right? So then the question is, why are we allowing them to impose their value system when we have clear of our own? And why are we abandoning our own value system and just going and adopting their own or struggling with their value system? So the solution then is, okay, we need to get very good at understanding why we stand for what we stand, which is collaboration in this case. We need to also understand that whoever has the strongest energy, strongest belief system in that value prevails. And therefore, instead of focusing on judging them, instead of focusing judging ourselves, instead of focusing to protect ourselves or being vigilant and being afraid or being uncomfortable or avoiding them, what we need to get so good at, or what we need to get so good at exemplifying and practicing and showcasing, is living our values. So how could this look like in practice? In practice, the way it could look like is if there are needs to set boundaries, okay, fine, we can set boundaries. But the important part is being very clear about, no, I'm not participating in the competition. You can participate in the competition if you feel like there is a competition. You can do that, but competition only works if we accept that competition, right? But if we're not accepting it and it's not even our concern anymore, then we keep looking at how do we want to collaborate with this person or with other person in a way that promotes and moves our impact. And that needs to be the focus of our being every day at work. Okay, so the third topic is it's complicated topic, and this is a topic that I've spoken about several times, I think a year or 2 years ago, and this keeps coming up with some of my clients. And the topic is essentially how we keep labeling a lot of things as it's complicated, and therefore we keep avoiding looking at those topics, or we keep avoiding solving those topics, and then they just become like a baggage that we keep carrying with us. And this was a topic that I had in my own life for so long. So therefore, I can really relate to how this topic makes it even interesting that you start building relationships that are somehow complicated, right? And then just wonder, but why am I in this complicated relationships as well? And then you may not be able to find an answer. So therefore, I feel like with my client, we have found the answer, right? So we were looking at how she was labeling, or what she was labeling as complicated, and then how that was impacting her life and her relationships. So in her case, as well as I think in my case, it's complicated is something that we label when we feel like we can't really solve it, when we feel like we're afraid of solving it, or when we feel We are afraid of judgment. We are afraid of losing something. We're afraid of not being able to have a relationship, whatever it is that we're afraid of. In order, excuse me, in order not to solve, because we just feel like it's very hard to solve, we then put a bandage on top of it that says complicated. Now, excuse me, for our brains, it's now a double difficult thing because just already when we're afraid of something, it's difficult for our brain to then go move forward to do something about it. Now, if we put another label, it's complicated, then we're definitely making sure we don't look at it and we don't solve that topic, right? And that's also what was happening with her. And I was telling her my example as well from my life, where I was in a relationship for 6 years with someone where I kept feeling like it's complicated. He had a family, he had a child as well, and he was avoiding his family and child. And I was avoiding my whole life and my baggage from the past. And therefore, I kept being in this relationship and keep feeling like it's complicated. I can't solve it. I don't know how to solve it, and all of these things. And then after 6 years of when the situation was so unbearable that there was no other choice but to solve it because inside I was just feeling like a dead person or a numb person. And that's when I thought, okay, I need to solve this. I need to end this relationship because this is not a healthy relationship. I don't want to be in such relationship. And once I ended, I started really unpacking, also looking at all of my labels of life instances that I labeled as complicated, and I started solving them one by one. And once I did that, I realized that once I stopped avoiding my life and I started looking at, okay, I want to have, like, I declared basically to myself and like to the universe as to, I want to have relationships that are healthy, that are not complicated, that are straightforward. There are no like major existential issues. Of course, there might be issues that we can solve together, but there are no major existential issues. And I want to build healthy relationships like that. And then once I have solved those complicated labels and I started feeling those fears, I started looking at those fears, I started letting other people judge me, I started not if being afraid of those judgments, I started feeling like I'm not afraid of my own judgments and I don't need to judge myself and all of these things that I got rid of. Then I started meeting people who were not complicated at all, who had things very straightforward. And I had my things straightforward. There were no baggages attached. There were no like married people who are avoiding their families. Um, I was not avoiding anything, and it was just a beautiful relationship that I started building that didn't involve commitment issues, didn't involve avoidance issues, didn't involve codependency, didn't involve anything complicated. And therefore, I would like for you to also look at your life. If you keep labeling things as complicated, get curious as to what is it that you are labeling as complicated and why, how that's impacting your life currently on in terms of what kind of people you are meeting in your personal relationship, what kind of people you are meeting in your work relationships. And then as you see that, if we assume the premise that the world is our mirror and showing us what's our internal world, then the world will be telling you that, okay, this person is mirroring to you what are the things you need to be solving, right? And then start solving those things to a point that you no longer need to label anything complicated. Like, I think I haven't labeled anything in my life complicated for over 10 years now, and I don't have anything complicated. And I feel so free and proud about that fact. And I would like for you to experience that as well if you would like to. So, my dears, so these are the three things that we have work through and strategize and solve so that my clients can go about building the life they would like to. And if that's you as well, I would love for you to come coach with me so we can resolve some of the topics that can free up your inner world to be living the life you love. Have a beautiful week.